Hi everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper, and today I've got a project for you using one of the Celebration freebies. This is the detailed Dogwood stamp set. Really pretty stamp set, line drawings, ideal for colouring using your blends or a blender pen and your ink pads, or as I've done here, watercolour pencils. I haven't done it on watercolour card. I'll explain that when I come to showing you how I coloured it in. So there's lots of lovely images in this stamp set. You get 10 images. So there's this main dog rose here. You've got one of the dog rose buds, some leaves, flowers, some background stamps. These are lovely for creating backgrounds. You've got this little ampersand, almost a sort of a tile flower, and this gorgeous little dragonfly here. Now, it's a standalone stamp set. As I said, it's in the Celebration booklet. It is a £90 spend to get this, but let's face it, it's not hard to spend £90, is it? These are while stocks last. Celebration runs to the 29th of February. It's the 3rd today. So you've got just under a month left to grab any bits and pieces that you've got your eye on that you haven't already got. Okay, so I'm more or less casing the catalogue here. So this is the page, it's page 15 of the Celebration catalogue. And I'm more or less casing their samples here, just a little bit different. The other thing I need to point out to you is that the flower that's in this stamp set, this one here, that actually coordinates with the Petal Park punch, which is this one here that's got the flowers on it. I'm just having a look to see if I can see it on my desk. I know that I actually have it, but I don't know what I've done with it. Nope, can't see it. Not going to rummage around on my desk while I'm talking to you. Okay. Right, okay. So let's put this to one side and get started. Okay, so... Sorry, my husband's just come in and given me something which is about to do a fandango off my desk. Right, okay, I need a bigger craft room. My desk is too small, I've got stuff everywhere. Anyway, right, let's put the stamp set to one side. I prevaricate. So what I've done, I've got a base card here. This is a standard C6 base card, so it's half of an A4 sheet, scored, so it's... let's start that again, shall we? Half of an A4 sheet, which in the UK is the full A4 sheet cut at 14.8 and then scored at 10.5 to make that. We're using it as a top opener, so it's going to go that way. And then I've cut, so that's our card base. I've then cut another piece of card. I'm going to apologise now, my phone is on low battery, so I've had to plug it in. If I catch the lead, it can sometimes wobble the screen, so I'll apologise now. I've got another piece of pecan pie, and this is cut at 10 by 14.3 centimetres. And then I've got a piece of DSP. This is actually from one of the online exclusives. Oh goodness me, I can't think what it's called now, honestly. It is the Hello Irresistible pack of 6x6 DSP, and I've just trimmed down. You get 2 of these out of a sheet, so this is cut at 5¼ inches. I'm sorry about mixing the measurements, but that's, the paper is 6x6, so that's the easiest way to explain it. 5¼ inches by 3 inches, so it's half of the sheet and then trimmed down to 5¼ Okay, you could use whatever side you like, but I'm going to use this sort of dotted grid side. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is bring in some stamps, and I'm using pecan pie ink. And I'm going to bring in some stamps, and we're just going to stamp randomly, or as randomly as I can. I know anybody that's listened to my videos before knows that I'm not able to do random stamping. I just can't do it. I can if I force myself, but on this kind of thing I end up being, you know, not random. So I'm just going to embrace the fact, and we're going to go in, and I'm using pecan pie ink, and I'm stamping and then stamping off again, just to give us a variety of shade. And I'm going to do the leafy stamp at all 4 corners, and then I'm coming in again, doing the same thing, but I'm going the other direction this time, on the longer edges, bottom and top. And then I'm going to bring in this little flower. This is the one that you can punch out with the Pedal Park punch. Honestly, don't know what I've done with mine. It'll be around somewhere. As I said, my craft room is an absolute mess. It needs a proper sort out. And top and bottom, I'm just stamping first generation, but at the ends, I'm stamping and stamping off. Okay, so that's that. And then I'm going to put that to one side. We're going to bring our piece of DSP in. Okay, and I'm going to use this really long, I don't know if any of you noticed this in the stamp set, but this is almost the entire length of the stamp box. And I'm going to bring in this really long stamp set, and I've just realised it's got a wiggle in it. But, okay, I am inking the whole thing up, but because I'm going to go across the bottom and then stamp off, so you get the 2 gradients of colour. So that's that one. And then I'm going to bring in this sort of scribbled line, and we're going to do the same again, stamp and stamp off, and then at the bottom stamp and stamp off. So I like to go off the edge of the page, and then I'm going to bring in the tile effect, this sort of little flower with the bits coming out of it, and we're going to do exactly the same thing again, stamp and stamp off. We just want to get some sort of extra detail in there. So there's no set way to have to stamp this, it's just how you want to do it yourself. Right, I'm just going to put my ink away for the minute, because otherwise I know I'll lean on it and get covered in it. Right, now the next thing I'm going to do is bring it back in both these pieces we've just stamped and a pair of snips. Now at this point, as you're watching me opening up the snips, oh my goodness me, my words won't come out straight today. I suspect that there are several of you shouting at the screen going, no, don't do it, because you know what I'm about to do. So we're going to distress the edge. And to do that, I've opened up my snip and I'm scraping them, yes, you can hear that correctly, along the edges of the cardstock. So you want to give it a decent scrape. Sounds horrible, doesn't it? And as I said, there are people watching this going, no, how can you be doing that to a decent piece of cardstock? This is where you know that our cardstock is core colour cardstock, because you don't get any white when you scrape at the edges. Okay, so that's that one. So that's going to go on there, and then you can see that I've got bits of cardstock everywhere. And then we're going to do exactly the same to the DSP. Now, DSP is not as hardy as the cardstock is, so it might rip. We might tear a corner off. It's not, oh, it might rip like that. In which case, let's just rough that up a bit. I mean, obviously, you don't want to rip it to shreds. You don't want to rip huge, great chunks out of it. Although I did on the last card, took a corner off. So exercise some caution, but you do want to rough those edges up. We want it to look like it's been dogged and dragged around and shoved in a bag, and you know, like those bits of paper you find at the bottom of your handbag when you clean it out. Okay, very dogged. There we go. And that's going to go across there, and I'm just going to curl a corner up just because I can. I'm just going to screw it up and fold it up and then unfold it just because I can. Right, let's do that to this because we want it to look dogged, as if it's been knocking about on someone's desk, in the bottom of a handbag, in a coat pocket. Okay, right. Those of you that put your hands over your eyes while I was doing that can look again. just going to get rid of my piece of scrap paper that I collected all those bits on. Please excuse the state of my mat. It's a little bit gluey and I need to clean it. Okay, so now we're going to start mounting things up. So this first layer we are going to glue onto the card front. So I'm using my Tombow, so that gives me a little bit of wiggle room, and open up the card base makes it much easier to line it up because it's not bouncing around. Okay, let's fold that back over, and then we're going to do the same with our piece of DSP that we've distressed. I went for this this paper because I thought the colours went quite nicely with the pecan pie. So this is Lost Lagoon, I think, this section here, and on this one it's oh my word, I think it's Flirty Flamingo and possibly Calypso Coral. Anyway, okay, so we're just gonna stick that on there, and then the flower we are going to stamp in some basic grey. Just excuse me while I grab some scrap paper. Thought I was organised, clearly not that organised. Okay, so you can stamp this in black. I just find that it gives a nicer, softer edge stamping it in basic grey, especially if you're going to watercolour. Okay, as I said before, there isn't a die. We've got to fussy cut this. So just give it a good stamp. Right, now I've pulled out my watercolour pencils, and I'm rather hoping that at some point Stampin' Up might make another set of watercolour pencils, because we haven't had a new set for a while and we have had a lot of new colours, and equally some of the colours that I did have in pencils I think have possibly retired. Maybe I'm looking at my pencils now thinking maybe not, but anyway, so I have picked out some early espresso for the stalk, which is still a colour, some old olive, which is still a colour. These ones came in a kit, and as such they're not labelled with the colours, but it's a lighter colour than old olive, and I do wonder if it's Granny Apple. Oh, actually no, that's Granny Apple Green. That's Granny Apple Green, so it's very slightly lighter, so I'm not sure what that is. That possibly might be a retired one. And I think I've got some Daffodil Delight. This one is Flirty Flamingo, and I'm not sure what this one is. Again, it came in the kit. I'm looking at my pinks, but I don't... Oh, it's too dark for petal pink. I'm not sure what that is, but anyway, as I said, hopefully the nice people at Stampin' Up might actually issue a new set of watercolours. Okay, so I'm going in with the early espresso. Now, one thing you'll notice about my watercolours, if I show you the ends, is they aren't sharp. I don't actually, there you go, hopefully you can see that. I don't actually like colouring with a really sharp pencil because the lines are too harsh. I like to colour with a not blunt, but blunted down pencil, because I find it gives a softer finish. So when I do sharpen my pencils, and if they have got a nice point on them, I scribble the point away. Okay, so I'm going to come in with the greens. Now we've got a darker green and a lighter green. I know the darker green is Old Olive. I can't for the life of me work out what that one is. As I said, I thought it was Granny Apple Green, but when you compare them, there's a, I don't know if you can see, there's a very slight difference. Anyway, so I'm going in with the Old Olive first, and I'm just going to add some colour to the leaves. Now I know that they're not as easy to colour with if they're not sharp, because you can't, you know, it's not so easy to get a nice crisp edge, but I do think it gives a nicer nicer effect. And as I said before, this isn't watercolour paper. If you're going to use an aqua painter to blend your colours, you really do need to use watercolour paper, but I'm not going to do that. So colouring on basic white is fine. So I'm just going in and putting some base colour. Onto my leaves. While I'm doing this, I'm sitting here thinking I probably should have put my glasses on. Let's just find my specs. I don't wear them very often. I only need them for, oh gosh, it's really bad colouring. I don't wear them very often. I don't need them for anything other than sort of close-up work. And as such, because I don't wear them very often, they often give me a headache. But I can see how terrible my colouring was without them on. Honestly, I think when you get to my age, we're all in denial about the fact that we need glasses. Don't worry about that overspill down here on the leaf because we're going to cut it out anyway. I missed a bit there. Oh, and there's a leaf here. Yeah, as I was saying, I think as you get older, we're all in denial about the fact that we need glasses, and we spend ages peering at things. Right, and I'm just bringing in the lighter green now. I'm just blending over that old olive with the lighter green. This is what I like about watercolour pencils. You can blend the colours to get the desired result. Obviously, if I was using an aqua painter, I wouldn't need to lay down anywhere near as much colour because I'd be moving it around with the aqua painter. I'm just making sure with this lighter green that I go right to the edges on the leaves to help blend in the old olive. In that respect, an aqua painter is easier because you can push the colour around a bit easier. Anyway, right, that's all the leaves blended. Missed a bit there, quite happy about that. And then we're going to come in and do the flowers, and I'm using a combination of Flirty Flamingo and this lighter pink, which, as I said, I can only assume I'm sat here looking at my ink pads, and I can only assume it's a retired colour. I think it might have been one of the pinks that retired. Oh, goodness me, I can't think of the names of them now. But there were some Blushing Bride and another one. So it quite possibly might be one of those. Right, so I'm going to start with the darker, which is the Flirty Flamingo. And I'm just colouring in the bottoms of the petals because obviously that's where the colour's more intense. I'm going up the sides on the big open flower. I'm getting to the point now where these are going to need a sharpen. And the good people at Stampin' Up have put some shading in for us on the stamp, so you can see where you need to add your darker colours. I always start with the darker colours and blend in with the lighter ones with a pencil. With a blend, I tend to start with the lighter colours and then go in with the darker ones. It's strange, isn't it, how we use different techniques. Right, so that's that little bud. I'll finish off these petals here. Pink Pirouette. That was the other pink that retired. I used to use that a lot. So I'm guessing that this pencil that doesn't have a colour name on it, because it came in a kit, is going to be either Blushing Bride or Pink Pirouette. Think Blushing Bride, potentially. Right, so we've done all the darker. And then what I'm going to do is come in with the lighter one, which is the Flirty Flamingo, and just blend that in. And if you're not sure about your watercolour pencils and how they're going to go together, just scribble them together on a piece of scrap white paper for a practice. And then you can see how they're going to work together. That's what I always do. Right, if you'll forgive me, I'm just going to chop this out of the piece of basic white that it's in, so I can turn it round a bit easier and not take it out of shot on the screen. Let me just get rid of that. It just makes it a little bit easier to turn it around because it's on a smaller piece. I was going to use my blends to colour this in, but I thought it might give a softer look with watercolour pencils. Almost done. Just got this one in here to do. Right, I'm sorry if that was a bit like waiting for paint to dry or watching paint dry. Okay, and then for the middles, I'm just going to go over with some Daffodil Delight. Okay, right, so that's our colouring finished. And then, as I said before, I'm going to blend it with a Wink of Stella. So a Wink of Stella is alcohol based. If you've got a Wink of Stella that's almost run out, you can take it apart the same way you have to take it apart to take off the cap when you first get it. It has a spacer in there we need to take apart, and you can wiggle this black cap out carefully and add some rubbing alcohol, which will help rinse out the rest of the Wink of Stella that's all stuck around the barrel. You can also use an empty Wink of Stella brush. If you notice, I have I have a few. I always keep my empty ones because they're handy to use for colours. You can add re-inkers to them. As before, add a little bit of rubbing alcohol or surgical spirit, and that will rinse out the last sort of vestiges of the Wink of Stella, and you can actually add re-inker to it to make a colour as well. They're also actually quite handy as water painters, aqua painters. So I'm just going to add some Wink of Stella to the petals, and that, because it's alcohol based, is going to blend my pencils a bit for me. Now you want to avoid the yellow while you're doing the petals, because the pink, the yellow from the middles of our flowers will get picked up on the brush, and you'll suddenly have yellow on the next petal that you colour if you do that. So the Wink of Stella, being alcohol based, is more or less doing the same thing as an aqua painter would do, filled with water on watercolour paper, but the basic white cardstock is not thick enough. You see, I had a scribbly line there, and I've managed to blend that out with the Wink of Stella. And you can do the same on the leaves if you want to, but I'm quite happy with my colouring. And you can see, well, you might not be able to see, I don't know if you can see that or not, the tip of my pen, of my Wink of Stella, is pink from that. So that shows you it's picked the colour up. So just scribble it off And then if you want to go over the yellow, you can do the same thing. I also find that, and you can see how much yellow that lifted up, look, by the fact it's on my piece of paper. I always think the Wink of Stella is, it sort of brightens up the colours as well. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, just give that a few seconds to dry while I'm talking to you, is to fussy cut it. Now, I've done a whole video on fussy cutting before, so any of you that have watched my channel for any length of time will know that you move the card and not the scissors. I tend to use the back of the blades of the scissors, unless it's a really fiddly piece. I'll come back and get that piece out in a minute. And then move the card rather than the scissors. Obviously you have to move the scissors up and down to open and shut them, but rather than trying to turn the scissors around the shape that you're cutting, it's much easier to turn the cardstock. Now, I am by no means a perfect fussy cutter. My fussy cutting is adequate. And obviously it's not quite so easy when you're trying to do it on film, because again, you've already had the effect of watching paint dry, watching me colour in a flower. So I don't want you all switching off because you're bored of watching me doing mundane things. Okay, so what I tend to do is go around the edge. If there are any particularly fiddly, fussy in bits, if you like, I go back to those after I've dealt with the edge. I just find it makes it easier. So let's just go around there. Now, because we're putting this on to designer series paper, you do have to make sure you get most of the white off the edge, unless you like a white edge. And for those of you that own a scan and cut or something like that, you could use that to help you cut this out, because you can alter the borders on a scan and cut. I do own one, but to be honest, by the time I've got out the mats and scanned the object in, I find it's just as easy and just as quick to fussy cut it. Having said that, if you really aren't any good at fussy cutting and you do own one, then it is worth spending some time learning how to cut something out with a border. It will work so long as it's a full line outline, if that makes sense. If there are any gaps where something's been sort of sketched, then it won't cut it out for you. There are lots of tutorials online to show you how, and I dare say, I don't own a cry cut, so I dare say that you can do exactly the same thing on a cry cut. Although I don't know, you can't scan on a cry cut as far as I'm aware, hence the scan and cut. But, unfortunately, my craft room is so crowded, I can't have my scan and cut out all the time, so I have to sort of unearth it, which takes time. Right, there we go. So that didn't take too long, did it, while I was waffling to you? Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of those pieces. Take my glasses off so I can see more than 2 inches in front of my face. Okay, and then I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of this. We're going to raise this up. You don't need a million dimensionals. Okay, let's bring my little pot back in for my backings. Trying to avoid them spreading themselves around the house everywhere. Okay, and then we're just going to add this raised section on the top of our DSP. Okay, so I'll bring back the other cards. So these are my two cards that we've made today, and then the only thing that we do need to do is add a panel inside of the cards, and I think I'm going to do some stamping on that. There aren't any sentiments in this detailed Dogwood stamp set, so if you want a sentiment to go on your card, you will need to go in search of one in another set. I'm just going to stamp 2 lines on the bottom of that to coordinate it with our card front, and then I'm just going to pop a little flower. I'll do a couple more there. Okay, just to tie that all in, and then we can just add some Tombow to that. Goodness me, things are falling down off my desk everywhere. Just make sure we have got the right side. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so that's our finished card with an insert inside as well to write on. And I don't think you necessarily always have to have a greeting on the outside of a card. Sometimes it's nice to have some that you either add a greeting to when you've decided who you want to send it to, or you just write on the inside. Okay, thanks for watching and putting up with my waffle while I coloured and fussy cut, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon. Happy stamping. Bye for now.